The Colombian House of Representatives approved the second debate on the government's health reform. In the framework of the 61st day of the Israeli siege on Gaza, the Israeli occupation army is directing its genocidal operation against the Khan Yunis area southwest of the Strip. And in Indonesia, rescue teams found the body of the last hiker missing after a volcanic eruption, bringing the death toll to 23. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. It took 6 months for the Colombian House of Representatives to approve the second debate on health reform on Tuesday night. The bill proposes a profound transformation of the healthcare system and was supported by the Liberal Party and the U Party. 10 hours of discussion ended with the approval of 3 articles and the elimination of 2, thus completing the 5 articles necessary for approval. Articles 122 and 123, which grant the President of the Republic the power to issue regulations with the force of law, were approved by an absolute majority. Senator Wilson Arias celebrated the result of this process, which now continues in the 7th Commission of the Senate.
No matter how many obstacles they try to impose on the health reform project, sometimes obstinate and often not sensible opposition, the Colombian government complies. It is advancing at this moment the health reform project in the Chamber of Representatives, fulfilling the promise of giving health to all Colombians, trying to bring health to the regions, especially those less attended historically.
The Venezuelan state complied with the popular mandate after the consultative referendum for the defense of the Essequibo held last Sunday. President Nicolás Maduro, in a meeting at the General Assembly of the Federal Council of Government, announced the 7 decisions of the government after the electoral exercise of December 3rd. Among the decisions are the creation of the Integral Defense Zones of Guayana Essequiba, with headquarters in Tumeremo, and the publication and diffusion in schools, high schools, and universities of the country's new map of Venezuela, which includes Guayana Essequiba. At the same time, he announced the activation of the debate in the National Assembly for the approval of the organic law for the defense of Guayana Essequiba.
Activate immediately the debate in the National Assembly and the approval of the organic law for the creation of the Guayana Essequiba and the implementation of the 5 decisions taken by the people of Venezuela, the 5 yeses in each of their parts. And I deliver to the President of the National Assembly, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, the organic law for the defense of the Guayana Essequiba, organic law to regulate the creation of the state of Guayana Essequiba, and all the decisions of last Sunday.
The Venezuelan government issued a statement on Wednesday condemning recent declarations of President of Guyana, Irfan Ali. The official communique states that the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela condemns the recent statements of President Irfan Ali, who in a reckless manner has given the green light to the presence of the United States Southern Command in the territory of Guayana Essequiba, over which Guyana maintains a de facto occupation and territorial dispute with Venezuela. This dispute is meant to be resolved through the 1966 Geneva Agreement, the only valid legal instrument between the countries. The statement also adds that Venezuela denounces before the international community, and especially before the community of Latin American and Caribbean states, the imprudent attitude of Guyana. Acting under the mandate of the U.S. transnational ExxonMobil, Guyana is opening the possibility of establishing military bases for an imperial power, thereby threatening the zone of peace outlined in this region. On Tuesday, Jose Casales, head of the Public Prosecutor's Office in the municipality of Juan Escudero in southern Mexico, was assassinated. Local police said the official was shot in the morning hours as he drove his car on the Chilpancingo-Acapulco highway near a gas station. The Public Prosecutor's Office announced that they have already started the investigation for the crime of aggravated homicide. It is worth mentioning that in the last 5 days, 3 people have been executed in the same area. Joseph Vincent, a former DEA informant, pleaded guilty to the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse. The accused of U.S. Haitian nationality collaborated with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, which has been linked to the crime perpetrated in July 2021. Several investigations assured that the assassinated president was going to send a list of people linked to drug trafficking to Washington. In a Miami court, Vincent, who was arrested together with several Colombians and Haitians, had initially said that he was hired by the assassins as a translator. The DEA always asserted that the accused acted independently. Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry confirmed that he held a meeting with the delegations of the United States and Kenya on Tuesday in Port-au-Prince. The Prime Minister described the meeting as very important, without referring openly to the arrival of the international force mission to restore peace in Haiti. Henry explained that there had also been meetings with the High Transitional Council and that in the coming days, technical teams would travel to Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, to organize the preparation for a mission to be installed temporarily in the country. The facts would indicate that the plan suggested by Washington and encouraged by the United Nations has been put into action. Mercosur foreign ministers meet on Wednesday in Rio de Janeiro in the framework of the summit where the state of negotiations with the European Union will be discussed. During the working session of the summit, Brazilian President Lula da Silva hopes to close his pro-tempore presidency of Mercosur by finalizing the trade agreement with the European community that for more than 2 decades has been elusive to the regional bloc and that the French and Argentine governments could hinder in the 2023 event. On the other hand, the Paraguayan President Santiago Peña, who will assume the leadership, declared that he will not devote more efforts to this trade agreement and that he will focus on new negotiations. In this sense, the Brazilian leader Lula da Silva warned that if the agreement does not materialize, it will not be due to the lack of will, but to the protectionism of the Europeans. In Uruguay, health workers strike for at least 15 hours during the General Assembly session in Parliament. The Uruguayan Health Federation called for a protest this Wednesday against President Luis Lacalle Pou's partial veto of the parliamentary proposal to honor the work credits of former employees of the Casa de Galicia, and the Uruguayan Medical Union joined them. In this sense, the concentration goes directly to the Legislative Palace, where there will be a parliamentary session while the demonstrators will be in the outskirts waiting for the legislators' response to the presidential veto. This with the aim of accompanying the workers affected by the closure of Casa Galicia in 2021. Let's take a short break now, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us.
A partir de diciembre viaja a Ecuador en las alas de Conviasa. Vuela desde Caracas a Guayaquil y de Guayaquil a Caracas. Déjate cautivar por su cultura, gastronomía, paisajes y tradiciones. También puedes viajar directo Caracas-Quito y de Quito a Caracas para más.
Welcome back from the south. On Wednesday, local media in Palestine reported that in the framework of the 61st day of the siege over the Gaza Strip, the Israeli occupation army is directing its genocidal operation against the Khan Yunis area, southwest of the Gaza Strip, where heavy fighting with Hamas is expected to take place. Israel Defense Forces spokesman Daniel Hagari clarified that his troops expect on Wednesday to reach Rafah as well. On the other hand, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisted on Tuesday that the Gaza Strip will have to be demilitarized after the current war with Hamas, saying that only the Israel Defense Forces and not any international force could be entrusted with such a mission. Netanyahu is questioned locally and internationally over the government's decision not to allow more humanitarian aid and fuel into Gaza. In this context, the Gaza Ministry of Health has confirmed that the north of the Strip has been left without medical and health services due to the siege of the occupier and the lack of fuel for hospitals. The ministry confirmed that Kamala 1 hospital has run out of fuel. In addition, the siege of the Zionist army continues in the vicinity with IDF units surrounding the health center a kilometer away, according to reports. As medical authorities say that in addition to patients and the wounded, there are 7,000 refugees in the vicinity, most of them women and children. Meanwhile, hundreds of bodies decompose outside the hospital, and Israeli snipers shoot everyone who moves inside the building. On Wednesday, Volker Turk, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, announced that Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are living in apocalyptic circumstances and reiterated his call for an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
As we speak, some 1.9 million out of the 2.2 million Palestinians have been displaced and are being pushed into ever-diminishing and extremely overcrowded places in southern Gaza in unsanitary and unhealthy conditions. The catastrophic situation we see unfolding in the Gaza Strip was entirely foreseeable and preventable. My humanitarian colleagues have described the situation as apocalyptic. In these circumstances, there is a heightened risk of atrocity crime.
The organization Save the Children has denounced that all the children in the Gaza Strip are in danger of being killed. The non-governmental organization, which has its headquarters in London, affirms that more than 1 million children, that is to say the entire child population of the enclave, have been left without a safe place to protect them from the bombings and armed confrontations. The organization's director in Gaza, Jason Lee, reiterated after the resumption of hostilities that the orders issued by Israel are unworkable and put children at greater risk. Without bomb shelters, without medical and sanitary conditions, without water and without food, there are no safe places for children in Gaza. More than 6,600 have been killed since October 7th, almost 112 a day. In Palestine, mourners prayed around several bodies outside a hospital in the central Gaza city of Deir al-Balah following Israeli strikes in the region on Wednesday. Dozens of bodies were brought to Al-Aqsa Hospital, including those who were killed in an airstrike that hit a house in the city. Others were also killed in an attack on a house in the Nusayrat refugee camp. The health ministry in Gaza said on Wednesday morning that the hospital had received the bodies of 73 people who had been killed in Israel's bombardment in the latest 24-hour period. Since October 7th, Israel's relentless aggression against Gaza has killed more than 16,200 people in Gaza, 70% of them women and children, and wounded more than 42,000. Palestinian demonstrators gathered in the center of Ramallah on Wednesday to protest against the war of Israel on Palestine. The demonstration was called by the Fatah party of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. During the protest, demonstrators carried Fatah flags and banners condemning Israel's bombardment of the Gaza Strip. The UN says some 1.87 million people, more than 80% of the population, have already fled their homes during the ongoing conflict. Much of the north has been completely destroyed, and Palestinians fear the rest of Gaza could suffer a similar fate. The health ministry said late Tuesday that the war has killed more than 16,200 people in Gaza, most of them women and children, and wounded more than 42,000. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a meeting with families of hostages held captive by Hamas who condemned the Prime Minister's attitude. The families expressed harsh criticism against the Premier, calling his actions insulting and disorderly. They asserted that the real architect of the few releases that have been achieved is the leader of Hamas in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, who returned them. The issue of the mistreatment of the captives by Hamas was on the table but was overshadowed by the desperation of the families whose relatives are still being held. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the world and the Caribbean. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. The body of the last hiker missing after a volcanic eruption in Indonesia was found Wednesday, rescuers said, bringing the death toll to 23 days after the disaster. Abdul Malik, head of the Padang Search and Rescue Agency, said that the joint search and rescue team had found a victim of the Mount Marapi eruption. The National Search and Rescue Agency earlier said the latest victim was a woman named Siska. Mount Merapi on the Indonesian island of Sumatra spewed a 3,000-meter ash plume over its crater on Sunday as 75 people were walking in the area. Hundreds of rescuers worked tirelessly to find the missing hikers, 52 of whom were found alive in a complex search hampered by further eruptions and bad weather. However, it is possible that other people have climbed the volcano without official registration. Britain and Rwanda signed a new treaty on Tuesday in a bid to revive a controversial proposal by London to transfer migrants to the East African country that was blocked by the UK courts. The UK government said that under the new treaty, Rwanda would be bound by international law not to return people to a country where their life or freedom would be in danger. The agreement, which UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says is crucial to achieve its pledge of slashing irregular migration before a general election expected next year, was signed in Kigali. It was penned by Rwandan Foreign Minister Vincent Biruta and British Interior Minister James Cleverly, who travelled to the Rwandan capital to salvage London's stalled bill to send migrants to Rwanda after the UK Supreme Court deemed the arrangement unlawful. The judges sided with a lower court decision that the policy was incompatible with Britain's international obligations because Kigali could forcibly return migrants to places where they could face persecution. On Wednesday in West Africa, the government of Mali and Niger announced they have decided to cancel their fiscal cooperation treaties with France. The communique adds that the measure, which has a community scope in the European Union, has been implemented because of the hostile attitude of Paris. In this sense, they explained that the agreements also imply losses of resources for the country, and taking into account that in 3 months they would expire, they accelerated the decision. The agreement suspended by the two African nations established rules to avoid double taxation, which the Malian and Nigerian government boards considered a colonialist vestige. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has ordered an investigation into a military drone strike that killed 85 civilians gathered for a religious celebration over the weekend. Government spokesperson Ajuri Ngelale said in an official statement on Tuesday that the president qualified the incident as worrying and painful. On the other hand, Nigerian Army Chief Lieutenant General Tao Redlakbaha personally visited Tundunbiri village to express apologies for the airstrike, while at Kaduna Hospital attending to the injured, he assured the victims that their medical bills would be taken care of. The attack was the latest in a series of errant strikes as the country fights armed groups in northern Nigeria. Kaduna, located 163 kilometers from the capital Abuja, is one of the several northwestern and north-central states grappling with kidnappings and killings by armed groups. Security forces have been employing aerial strikes in their efforts to counter these threats. On Tuesday, a court has suspended the privatization of 11 state-owned companies in Kenya, including the National Oil and Gas Company, following an appeal by the main opposition party. According to main opposition leader Raila Odinga, the sale of the state's holdings should be subject to a referendum because of the strategic importance of the companies concerned in this country, the economic powerhouse of East Africa. In his decision handed down late on Monday, High Court Judge Chacha Nwita said that he was satisfied that the opposition application raises constitutional and legal issues of public importance that require critical examination. The sale process has therefore been suspended until February 6, when the case will be examined on its merits. China Media Group unveiled Long Chen Chen, the official mascot for the 2024 Spring Festival Gala, on Wednesday, ahead of the upcoming Year of the Dragon beginning in February 2024. The name Long Chen Chen incorporates the Chinese character Long, which translates to dragon in English. The dragon has long held significant spiritual and cultural importance in China, featuring prominently in literature, art, folklore, architecture, clothing, and painting for thousands of years. In line with this rich heritage, the mascot embodies auspicious meanings of good fortune, peace, and happiness. The Spring Festival Gala is an essential part of the Lunar New Year celebrations and is deeply cherished by the Chinese people. During the Spring Festival, families from all over China come together. Broadcasting on the Lunar New Year's Eve, the gala is watched by more than 1 billion people, creating a shared experience that enhances feelings of unity and reunion. We have come to the end of this news brief, but before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscast and contribute to providing an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.